That's the tight end, Zach Davidson.
After that shocking altercation, the NFL has officially banned Shiloh Sanders for life.
Shiloh knows better. Shiloh knows he can't do a situation like that.
But this wasn't his first assault in the spotlight, just the latest in a long, troubling pattern.
He resets, roundhouse me, and hit me right in my chest.
But the real shock came with what Sanders did moments after hearing the ban. Let me put you on game. The 2025 incident that ended everything. The NFL preseason of 2025 was supposed to be Shiloh Sanders' moment of redemption. The 25-year-old safety, son of legendary Hall of Famer Deion Primetime Sanders, had gone undrafted despite his pedigree and college accomplishments. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers saw potential in the young defensive back, offering him a 3-year, $2.5 million contract as an undrafted free agent, including more than $800,000 in 2025 cash. It was his chance to prove that he belonged in the league that had made his father a legend. However, on August 23rd, 2025, during what should have been a routine preseason finale against the Buffalo Bills at Raymond James Stadium, everything came crashing down in a moment of uncontrolled aggression that would define his legacy for all the wrong reasons. The incident began innocuously enough, late in the second quarter, with the Buccaneers trailing in what would become a 23-19 loss. Bills tight end Zach Davidson was engaged in routine post-play blocking against Sanders. What happened next was anything but routine. Davidson, standing 6'7" and weighing 251 pounds, continued his aggressive blocking well after the whistle, pushing the 6-foot Sanders backward approximately 15 yards toward the goal line. The video footage, which would later go viral across social media platforms, shows Davidson lunging at Sanders, grabbing the left side of his head near the face mask and flailing his right arm past Sanders' head, while the Colorado product was in a crouched position. This persistent and unnecessarily rough blocking appeared to be the breaking point for Sanders, whose reputation for aggressive play had followed him from his college days. As Davidson delivered what witnesses described as a final, provocative shove, Sanders rose from his crouched stance and did something that would end his NFL career before it truly began. He retaliated by swinging a punch, described in various reports as either a closed fist punch or an open-handed slap, directly at the left side of Davidson's helmet. The blow landed in full view of two referees standing nearby, who immediately threw a penalty. Flag for unnecessary roughness.
So let me ask you a question. You hit him. You think you hurt him? You think there was a greater chance you hurt your own self, or you could hurt him?
The reaction was swift and unforgiving. Sanders was promptly ejected from the game, a decision that carried immediate consequences beyond just the remainder of that contest. During the altercation, Buccaneers linebacker John Bullock attempted to intervene, pulling Sanders away and trying to calm the situation, but it was too late. The damage had been done, both to the team's field position and to Sanders' future. Davidson, meanwhile, wasn't penalized for his role in instigating the confrontation, despite video evidence showing his fingers inside Sanders' face mask moments before the punch. The Bills tight end even celebrated afterward by making a too small gesture toward Sanders, adding insult to what would soon become career-ending injury for the young safety. The penalty moved the Bills to 1st and 10 at the Tampa Bay 11-yard line, directly contributing to a touchdown on the very next play via a spectacular one-handed catch by Tyrell Shavers. It was a microcosm of how Sanders' lack of discipline had hurt not just himself, but his entire team's chances of success. Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles, a defensive-minded coach known for his no-nonsense approach, was livid. His post-game comments left no room for interpretation about Sanders' future with the organization. Bowles called the ejection inexcusable.
What'd you say to Shiloh Sanders after that ejection?
I know you can't throw punches in this league. I mean, that's inexcusable. They're going to get you every time. Got to grow from that.
The coach's frustration was palpable, particularly given that Sanders had been competing for what was likely the final safety spot on the roster behind established players like Antoine Winfield Jr. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Less than 24 hours after the ejection, on August 24, 2025, the Buccaneers informed Sanders that he was being waived as part of their mandatory roster cuts. While the team officially framed this as part of standard preseason evaluations, the timing spoke volumes about how the organization viewed Sanders' actions.
Shiloh knows better. Shiloh knows he can't do a situation like that.
The news broke through Sanders' high-profile agents, Drew Rosenhaus and Robert Bailey of Rosenhaus Sports Representation. These weren't just any agents. Rosenhaus had built a reputation as one of the most aggressive and media-savvy representatives in the NFL, famous for his next question catchphrase and ability to negotiate lucrative contracts for his clients. The fact that even agents of this caliber couldn't save Sanders Sanders' roster spot spoke to the severity of his actions. Rosenhaus and Bailey issued what was described as an urgent plea to other NFL teams, hoping Sanders would be claimed on waivers or signed to a practice squad. They emphasized his potential as a versatile safety with strong pedigree, athleticism, and upside, urging teams to take a shot on him despite the incident. However, their public push highlighted just how dire Sanders' situation had become. The reaction from the football community was mixed but largely critical. Former NFL players and analysts pointed to Sanders' limited preseason performance, just 4 solo tackles and 1 quarterback hit across 3 games, as evidence that his release was about more than just the punch. Some argued that his athleticism and football IQ were questionable for the NFL level, and the incident merely provided cover for a cut that was likely coming anyway. However, others saw deeper issues at play. The incident reignited discussions about the Sanders family's controversial approach to discipline and accountability. Critics pointed to what they saw as a pattern of behavior enabled by privilege and celebrity status, while supporters argued that Sanders was being unfairly targeted because of his famous last name.
Sometimes your last name can be a blessing and a curse. It's not normal that free agents have breaking news that they're being released. He's an undrafted free agent, and because his name is Sanders, the blessing and the curse, people say, well, Shannon, he only got an opportunity because his last name is Sanders.
Perhaps most damning was the revelation that this wasn't Sanders' first brush with violence on a football field, and on closer inspection, people are now seeing a pattern of violence and family dysfunction. The August 2025 punch that ended Shiloh Sanders' NFL aspirations wasn't an isolated incident of poor judgment. It was the latest chapter in a troubling pattern of violence and controversy that had followed him since his teenage years. To understand how a young man with every advantage in life could derail his professional dreams so spectacularly, we must examine the series of incidents and family dynamics that shaped his character and ultimately led to his downfall. The most serious and legally consequential incident in Sanders' past occurred on September 17, 2015, when he was just 15 years old. The setting was Focus Academies, also known as AAA Academy, a private high school in Dallas, Texas, where his father Dion served as CEO and head football coach. What began as a routine disciplinary matter over cell phone usage escalated into a violent assault that would haunt Shiloh for the rest of his life. The incident started when Shiloh was serving in-school suspension for being disruptive in class. Despite the school's strict no-phone policy, he was using his cell phone to contact his mother, Pilar Sanders, amid his parents' contentious divorce and custody battle. When school security guard John Darjean, a 48-year-old former minor league baseball player, approached to confiscate the phone per Dayon's instructions, the confrontation turned violent.
And I said, give me the phone. I'm not playing with you. Give me the phone. So I grabbed his arm, and I don't grab it hard. I just try to stop him because he looks like he's about to walk out of the building. So I put my hand on his arm, and he jerks away like really hard, and he grazes me.
According to court documents and multiple investigations, Shiloh slammed his elbow into Darjean's chest and continued to hit Darjean as he fell.
And then he roundhoused me, he resets, roundhoused me, and hit me right in my chest and up and drove it into my neck. And I fell back.
The attack was so severe that Darjean had to be taken to the hospital in an ambulance, where he was diagnosed with a broken neck, damage to his cervical spine, permanent neurological injuries, and irreversible incontinence. The medical evidence was damning. Darjean underwent a 5-level spinal fusion surgery and now receives $1,400 monthly in disability payments. His injuries were so severe that he requires ongoing treatment and faces the prospect of additional surgery. For a man who was simply trying to enforce school policy at the request of Shiloh's own father, the consequences were life-altering. What makes this incident even more disturbing is the pattern of behavior it revealed. Multiple investigations into the assault found Shiloh at fault in 4 out of 5 cases. A 2022 Texas court ruling stated unequivocally, on September 17, 2015, Shiloh Sanders did in fact cause physical harm and injuries to John Darjean by assaulting him, and that Darjean's injuries and damages were a foreseeable consequence of the physical assault perpetrated by Shiloh Sanders. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Shiloh and his family fought the case for years, employing various legal strategies to avoid accountability. When the case went to trial in March 2022, Shiloh failed to appear, claiming he didn't receive notice due to an outdated address and his inability to afford counsel. This resulted in a default judgment of $11.89 million against him, a staggering sum that reflected the severity of Darjean's injuries and the callous disregard Shiloh showed for the legal process. Rather than accept responsibility and work to pay the judgment, Shiloh took an even more controversial step. In October 2023, he filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Colorado, attempting to discharge the debt. This move was particularly galling given given his family's wealth and his own earning potential through name, image, and likeness (NIL) deals, which were estimated at $1.1 million. The bankruptcy filing revealed the lengths to which Sanders was willing to go to avoid taking responsibility for his actions. He initially listed assets of more than $400,000, later amended to $320,000, including a $75,000 Mercedes and $75,000 in jewelry. However, critics alleged he was hiding assets through limited liability companies and understating his NIL earnings. Darjan's attorney contested the bankruptcy filing, arguing that the debt stemmed from willful and malicious injury and therefore could not be discharged under federal law. The case became even more complex when it was revealed that Sanders had been spending lavishly despite claiming financial hardship. The 2015 assault wasn't the only concerning incident in Sanders' past. His college career was marked by several controversial moments that revealed a player struggling with anger management and impulse control. During his time at Colorado, he developed a reputation for late hits and dirty play that earned him the ire of opposing fans and players. One of the most notorious incidents occurred during the October 12, 2024 game against Kansas State, where Sanders was making his return from a broken forearm injury. His performance was so poor that even his father, head coach Deion Sanders, called it horrible and noted that Shiloh was rusty. But it wasn't just the missed tackles and poor angles that drew criticism. It was another late hit on Kansas State running back DJ Giddens that fans described as potentially career-threatening. The pattern extended beyond just football incidents. Sanders had also been involved in verbal altercations with opposing teams, most notably before the 2023 Oregon game, where he was caught on camera threatening opposing players and coaches. Video footage captured him saying, "I'll beat the fuck out of every one of y'all and your coach," a threat that seemed particularly ominous given his history of actual violence. The family dynamics that contributed to Sanders' behavioral problems cannot be ignored. His parents, Deion and Pilar Sanders, had one of the most acrimonious divorces in celebrity history, complete with public accusations, custody battles, and even domestic violence allegations. In 2012, Pilar was arrested for allegedly assaulting Deion at their home in Prosper, Texas, an incident that 12-year-old Shilo witnessed. The divorce proceedings revealed a family in crisis, with allegations flying between the parents about fitness to raise their children. The custody battle was particularly intense, with both sides making serious accusations about the other's parenting abilities. For young Shiloh, caught in the middle of this dysfunction, violence and confrontation became normalized behaviors. Deion's role in enabling his son's behavior has also come under scrutiny. Initially supportive of Darjean after the 2015 assault, Deion later changed his story completely. He publicly called Darjean a grifter and released partial video footage to TMZ in an attempt to portray his son as the victim. This pattern of protecting his children from consequences, regardless of their actions, may have contributed to Shiloh's belief that he could act with impunity. The financial implications of Sanders' violent past continued to haunt him even as he pursued his NFL dreams. John Darjean, the security guard he assaulted, publicly stated that he had a rooting interest in Sanders succeeding professionally because it would increase his ability to collect on the $11.89 million judgment. The cruel irony was that Sanders' victim was hoping for his success while Sanders himself was sabotaging his own career. The pattern of violence and poor decision-making that characterized Sanders' life off the field inevitably spilled over into his athletic career. College teammates and coaches had reportedly grown frustrated with his tendency toward unnecessary roughness and his inability to control his emotions during crucial moments. These concerns likely contributed to his status as an undrafted free agent despite his pedigree and measurable athletic ability. Even more troubling was the family's apparent inability to learn from these repeated incidents. Rather than addressing the underlying behavioral issues, they seemed to double down on victimization narratives and legal maneuvering. But to truly grasp how the August 2025 punch became the breaking point in Shiloh Sanders' story, we have to rewind back to his privileged beginnings, his father's towering legacy, and the path that was supposed to lead him to greatness. The rise and fall of a football dynasty's son. To understand the complete tragedy of Shiloh Sanders' implosion, we must examine not just his failures, but the incredible advantages and opportunities he squandered along the way. Born on February 9, 2000, into one of the most famous families in sports history, Shiloh had every possible benefit that money, connections, and athletic genetics could provide. Shiloh Deion Sanders entered the world as the eldest son of Pro Football Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, a man whose nickname Primetime perfectly encapsulated his larger-than-life personality and transcendent athletic ability. Deion wasn't just any former NFL player. He was a 2-time Super Bowl champion, 8-time Pro Bowler, and one of only 2 athletes to play in both a Super Bowl and World Series. His mother, Shiloh Sanders, was a successful model and actress who brought her own level of celebrity to the family dynamic. Growing up in Dallas, Texas, Shiloh was immersed in an environment where excellence in athletics wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. The Sanders household was one where sports achievement was the primary currency of affection and attention, with Deion often sharing family moments on social media that highlighted his children's athletic accomplishments while ranking their Father's Day gifts with characteristic competitive flair. From his earliest days, Shiloh showed promise as a multi-sport athlete. Beyond football, he explored music production and beat making as a hobby, displaying the kind of creative versatility that seemed to run in the family. However, it was on the football field where expectations were highest and where the weight of his father's legacy pressed most heavily upon his young shoulders. His high school career at Trinity Christian High School in Cedar Hill, Texas, showcased both his potential and the advantages of having a legendary father as his position coach. With Deion serving as offensive coordinator, Shiloh developed into a versatile player who contributed at multiple positions: safety, wide receiver, punt returner, and kick returner. His statistical achievements were impressive for a high school player: 24 tackles, 5 interceptions, and 1 fumble recovery on defense, plus 13 receptions for 199 yards and 3 touchdowns on offense. Perhaps most spectacularly, he returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns in his senior year, displaying the kind of explosive speed and vision that had made his father famous. As a 3-star recruit, he had his pick of colleges, ultimately choosing the University of South Carolina over offers from 14 other schools, including Florida State and Georgia. The decision represented his first attempt to establish his own identity separate from his father's shadow. His college career began at South Carolina under head coach Will Muschamp, where he showed flashes of the talent that had made him a sought-after recruit. As a freshman in 2019, he appeared in 4 games, recording 2 tackles and 1 fumble recovery. The COVID-shortened 2020 season saw expanded opportunity, with 9 games played, 4 starts, and 32 tackles, including a standout 10-tackle performance against Auburn in a victory that showcased his potential impact at the collegiate level. However, his time at South Carolina also revealed the first signs of the restlessness and decision-making issues that would plague his career. After the 2020 season, he entered the NCAA transfer portal, beginning a pattern of movement that would characterize his college experience. The decision to leave South Carolina represented both an opportunity and a warning sign. While transfers are common in modern college football, the frequency with which Sanders would change schools suggested an inability to commit, or perhaps unrealistic expectations about his role and treatment. His transfer to Jackson State University to play under his father's coaching represented a homecoming of sorts, but also raised questions about nepotism and whether Shiloh could succeed without family connections. At Jackson State, an FCS program, he initially thrived under Deion's tutelage, playing 13 games, 8 starts in 2021 with 39 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, 7 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 interceptions. This performance earned him second-team All-SWAC honors and seemed to validate the decision to play for his father. However, success at Jackson State came with asterisks. The level of competition at the FCS level, while respectable, was significantly lower than what he had faced in the SEC at South Carolina. Critics argued that his statistics were inflated by facing lesser competition, and that playing for his father created an environment where accountability might be compromised. These concerns would prove prescient as his career progressed. The 2022 season at Jackson State was derailed by an ACL injury that limited him to just 7 games, during which he managed 20 tackles and 1 interception. The injury was a significant setback that would affect his mobility and confidence for the remainder of his career. More concerning was his decision to enter the transfer portal again after the season, suggesting a pattern of running from adversity rather than working through challenges. His final collegiate destination was the University of Colorado, where he followed his father and brother Shedeur when Deion was hired as head coach. This move represented perhaps the ultimate test of whether Shiloh could perform at the highest levels of college football while dealing with the intense scrutiny that came with the Sanders family circus. The 2023 season at Colorado began with tremendous promise. In his debut against number 17 TCU, he recorded 10 tackles in an upset victory that announced Colorado as a legitimate contender under Coach Prime. His most spectacular moment came against Colorado State, where he returned an interception 80 yards for a touchdown while also forcing a fumble in the same game, the kind of game-changing plays that had made his father legendary. Over 11 games, all starts, in 2023, his statistics were solid: 70 tackles, 1 interception for 80 yards and a touchdown, 3 pass deflections, 1 fumble recovery, and 4 forced fumbles. These numbers represented the peak of his collegiate achievement and suggested that he might indeed have a future in professional football. However, the 2024 season revealed the limitations that would ultimately doom his professional prospects. Playing in 8 games, all starts, his production declined to 55 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 pass deflection, 1 fumble recovery, return for a touchdown, and 1 forced fumble. More concerning than the statistical decline was the emergence of the character issues that had plagued him since high school. The October 12, 2024 game against Kansas State became a defining moment in his career for all the wrong reasons. Making his return from a broken forearm injury, Sanders was completely overwhelmed by Kansas State running back DJ Giddens, who rushed for 182 yards and frequently made Sanders look foolish with sharp cuts and power runs. One particular play where Giddens broke his ankles with a juke move went viral, becoming a symbol of Sanders' limitations as a defender. More troubling than his poor tackling was another late hit on Giddens that fans characterized as potentially dangerous and unnecessary. This incident, combined with his history of violent behavior, began to establish a pattern that NFL scouts would undoubtedly notice. His father's post-game assessment was brutally honest, calling Shiloh's performance horrible and acknowledging that rust from injury couldn't excuse the level of play they had witnessed. The NFL evaluation process was particularly harsh on Sanders. Despite his pedigree and name recognition, he went undrafted in the 2025 NFL Draft, a clear indication that professional scouts saw significant limitations in his ability. The snub was so significant that he fired his father as his agent in a joking manner and hired high-profile representative Drew Rosenhaus in an attempt to salvage his professional prospects. Even his signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as an undrafted free agent came with caveats. The 3-year, $2.5 million contract seemed generous for an undrafted player, but it also reflected the team's willingness to take a chance on a player with significant question marks. The Buccaneers, known for their strong organizational culture under head coach Todd Bowles, likely believed they could mold Sanders into a productive professional. His brief preseason performance with Tampa Bay only confirmed the concerns that had led to his undrafted status. Across 3 preseason games, he recorded just 4 solo tackles and 1 quarterback hit while struggling to secure even a backup role in the secondary. His competition included players like Kayvon Merriweather and Rashad Wisdom for what was likely the final safety spot behind established starters like Antoine Winfield Jr. The tragedy of Shiloh Sanders' story isn't just that he failed to reach his potential, it's that he had every possible advantage and still found ways to sabotage his own success. Born into wealth and celebrity, coached by legends, and given multiple opportunities to succeed at the highest levels of football, he consistently made choices that limited his growth and ultimately destroyed his dreams.
Shiloh is a man of many talents. I don't know if you guys know, he's a man of many talents, and he's going to be straight. All the Sanders are going to be straight, with or without football. You better believe that.
His father's reaction to his NFL release was characteristically supportive, but also revealed the family's continued inability to acknowledge the role that Shiloh's own choices had played in his downfall. The broader context of Sanders' failure extends beyond just his individual story. His career represents the collision between old-school nepotism and new-age accountability, between celebrity privilege and professional standards. In an era where character concerns can derail even the most talented athletes, Sanders' history of violence and poor decision-making made him essentially unemployable at the highest levels of his sport. His failure to seize that opportunity and his active role in destroying it through repeated poor decisions makes his story not just tragic, but emblematic of deeper issues within celebrity culture and athletic privilege. In the end, the son of primetime proved that even the most famous names can't save you from yourself. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.